What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Another PHDJ podcast episode with Joe Bunn and my friend right there, Mike Walter.
What's going on, Joe? How are you?
My man. I'm hanging in there still.
Good.
I'm hanging in there. You
Good,
got any shows coming up?
No.
You don't?
We don't have a
Yours is
gig.
bad.
We have a handful of gigs on the books for June, but I'm pretty sure that they're all going to move. And
Same.
Who knows about it. People are asking me still. Now I've pushed my answer back to August. I think by August I'll be doing some gigs.
Yeah.
My personal September is so booked out. We were just talking about how I could use some extra money. If I wind up doing all these gigs in September, I will make up for a lot of the lost income going on during this time. Yeah.
I guess I'm the same. I think I have a wedding on June 6th, and I think she's saying if the wedding venues won't do it here, that she's just going to do it at her parents' house. So I feel like I have something on the books.
Right.
The pools.
Well, your area is a lot different than ours.
Correct.
I mean, you've been hit a lot less.
Correct.
Harder, and you're pretty much reopened, right? I called you the other day, and you were getting a haircut.
That was bootleg in somebody's garage.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You want me to edit that part out?
No, it's okay. We didn't say his name.
Imagine getting arrested for getting a haircut.
Dude, it's like a class 2 misdemeanor, he told me.
You're in the clink with somebody who like raped somebody and a murderer, and you're like, what are you in for? I got a haircut.
No, man. Oh, well, phase 2 starts Friday, which will be, small capacity restaurants and things like that.
Okay.
Anyway, it's happening. It's happening. South Carolina, 2 guys came up yesterday from there to pick up a piece of gear from me, and man, they're like, it's full blown party central down there. I mean, the guy was getting ready to do a club gig. Like, it's just so different amongst different parts of the country.
I saw some video footage from Texas this past weekend. They did some kind of Jeep gathering that they called it Topless on the Beach or something.
Yeah.
You get it, Topless Jeeps.
Yeah.
And I mean, you wouldn't know that there was people were no masks. People were partying side by side and sharing drinks and stuff. Yeah. It's,
whoa.
We'll see the backlash on that. We'll see. And we're now testing science because science basically said, don't do this. And, if those become hot spots, then science was right. If we trend through this, then maybe we can get back to normalcy a little bit sooner rather than later.
Let's hope so. Well, we don't want to talk about COVID today. We want to talk about one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite people of all time, one of my heroes. I'll go that far. The one, the only, number 23, Michael Jordan. So a few weeks ago on a podcast, I think Mike and I were talking about, was it on the podcast or were we just talking privately?
It was definitely on the podcast. Okay. I don't remember the topic in which it came up.
I don't either.
I'll be honest with you, Joe. I had heard about the series. The documentary is called The Last Dance.
Correct.
And I had heard it was about the last season of the Bulls.
Right.
And then I heard it was 10 hours. Yeah. And my thought was, how could you make 10 hours on it? That's almost the whole season, right?
Correct,
there.
right.
But what it really is an entire career retrospective of Jordan.
Correct.
So they do a lot of flashback, and they use the timeline thing to kind of bring you from 98 was that last season back to his rookie year, back to his college years, back to as the Bulls started becoming good under, with him. Yeah. So if they had explained to me, I might have tuned in, but it really took you, I think. And I think I started watching like after 3 weeks. So I had to catch up on 6 episodes. And then the last 2 weekends I watched pretty much as they came out. And I thank you for turning me on because it was a very enjoyable documentary.
It really was, man. Yeah. So if don't tune out, like don't turn this episode off if you haven't seen it. But please, if you even like I told Mike, even if you only like basketball a little bit, even if you only know a little bit about Michael Jordan, I promise you that especially during this.
Which by the way is me because
that was you.
Basketball is, it's my third out of the 4 majors. I like hockey even less than basketball, but it's a distant third. I rarely watch basketball, and of course I was aware of Jordan and his career. How could you not be? But I never had a feeling about him either way. And I thoroughly enjoyed this documentary.
I did too, and so Mike approached me and he said, let's talk about not necessarily how The Last Dance or how Michael Jordan applies to DJing, but maybe just business in general. You know what I mean? I think that was kind of how you pitched it, Mike.
I'll tell you what planted the seed for me. I don't know if you caught it, but Jordan said something in the documentary, that is basically one of the things that I say all the time about my staff. It was the episode where they were really showing what a tyrant Jordan could be and how far he pushed his teammates and how some of his teammates didn't really love him for that fact and everything else. And Jordan said, I never ask a teammate to do something that I'm not also doing.
Dude.
Which is one of my training things. When I train my DJs, I grab the microphone, and Joe has seen it because when I lead microphone workshops, I do the same thing. When I lead a microphone workshop, I am usually the first one on the mic demonstrating whatever we're going to demonstrate because I believe that. I've never asked people to do something I'm not doing. And even at events, and this is one of the ways that you and I disagree, if I got a chicken dance request, I'm going to go out there and lead it. I'm in the middle of the dance floor doing the chicken dance. I'm making jokes about it, but Joe will hit the chicken dance and say, I'm not going anywhere near the dance floor. And I don't blame you because it's not the coolest thing in the world. But
I don't know how to do it. I don't know how that. It's not necessarily.
Oh, get out of here. The chicken dance is easy to do. Exactly. Oh my God, we have video footage of Joe doing the chicken dance. So that was when Jordan said that, I perked up and I said, oh, I wonder if there are some business lessons or anything and you and I have done that plenty of times through the year. We've done this for over 3 years now. So we're always looking for content. And if this is going to be something that a lot of our listeners have either already watched or will be watching, let's give them a few other things that they can point out. And
I want to circle back on that. That right there is one of mine for sure. It was 2 blocks from here. It was a PHDJ workshop when we used to do it here in Raleigh. And the hotel where we had most of the workshop wouldn't let us play music loud. So we would go across the street to a little club that one of my friends owns so we could play music loud and do this MC training. And I remember Mike, he did like intros or something. And then he's like, are you ready, Joe? And I'm like, I was sitting in the back of the room, like barely paying attention. I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, dude, you can't ask somebody to do something that you're not going to try yourself. And I was like, wow. Okay. And I'd never heard anybody say that before. And sure enough, I grabbed the script, went up there and did my intros and got my critique, and we went from there. But that was definitely one of the things that was on here. I thought when you started that sentence, if you will, that you were going to go down the path of surround yourself with others that are great. And when you start talking about your staff and so on and so forth, there's no doubt Mike will sit there and tell you that sign wouldn't be behind him, the Elite Entertainment sign that's behind him right now. My play button logo wouldn't be behind me right now without the people that work for us. It would just be djmikewalter.com and djjoebunn.com, and we would try and do every single gig we possibly could to make a living for ourselves and our families. So hiring and training the right people, just like Michael did, your Rodmans, your BJ Armstrong, Steve Kerrs, Pippen. I mean, like, that's why they were great. I mean, Michael Jordan is the greatest player. By the way, let's just get this out of the way. Michael Jordan is not only the greatest person that ever played the game of basketball. I don't care. We can have this argument. Anybody else that wants to come at me, send me a message sideways. But he could be one of the greatest athletes that's ever played a sport, period. Like, I'm going that far.
Yeah, I would say he dominated his sport as much as any other athlete. I think you can put Mariano Rivera up there in baseball. I think one of the reasons why Jordan stands out is that basketball is more of an individual game. It is a team game, but it is a little bit more of an individual game. Tom Brady is probably the GOAT of quarterbacks, but he can't do it without a lot of other. And the point you just made about Jordan had to have a surrounding cast,
absolutely,
no doubt, that was essential. But I think basketball, more than any other sport, one player can make such a big difference. And I saw that repeatedly. Again, I didn't really follow Jordan's career, but there were so many times where he put that team on his back and just said, I will carry you. And he did. It was amazing. It was amazing to see it. Yeah.
So what else, Mike? What do you have particular?
One of the things, I talk about this in various seminars about running your multi-op, and I drilled down on it a lot when you and I used to do the workshop about you have your staff and then you have your rainmakers. And there's nothing wrong with treating your rainmakers differently, because there are certain staff members that are essential to the running of your business. And when I say rainmakers, it means that they generate a ton of referrals. To use a sports analogy, they help you win. They're not they're not the role players. They help you win.
Yeah.
And Rodman clearly was one of those, because Dennis Rodman got away with a lot of stuff that the bench player, the guy down on the end of the bench, wouldn't have gotten away with.
Judd Bushler.
Again,
right.
I did not follow this stuff when it happened live, and I thought but one of my questions was, how was I not aware? And then I realized this was 1998. I was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot in my book, Running Your Multi-Out. I was losing DJs left and right. I had an exodus go. I was pretty consumed with other things. So I don't remember watching any of those finals in 97 or 98. I don't remember Rodman basically leaving the team after a playoff game.
I remember all this stuff.
Vegas and wrestling. Like who? And I thought to myself, how could, what was the head coach's name?
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson. How could Phil Jackson not bench him for the following game? And I said, because he's too essential to the team. He couldn't do it. So that was what, like, I went, I don't want to name names here, but I have guys on staff that can get away with things, and I have guys on staff that can't get away with things. And that's just reality. When I do this in the workshop we do, there's a Joe Torre quote that I've used, where Torre talks about all the players are subject to the same rules, but how you interpret those rules depend on the player.
Oh, wow.
And, if you think that Joe Torre treated Derek Jeter the same way he treated, some backup bullpen guy who got in, once a week into a game, you're kidding yourself. And there's nothing wrong with having some exceptions for your Dennis Rodmans. There's nothing,
I love that, man. That's a great takeaway. One of mine was just, and I knew this, and this is why we had this episode recently where we kind of named people that we looked up to or our heroes. And I had, my dad, I had Jordan on there, and I watched all this again. I'm from North Carolina. He's from North Carolina. I went to the University of North Carolina. He went to the University of North Carolina. I guess
you're about the same height.
You're about the same height. Damn near could be the same age. I'm kidding. But I remember him as a freshman. I remember him hitting that shot and they win the national championship. I would have been 11, 12, something like that. I mean, just, that was even in the old gym that they don't even play in anymore. And followed his career, and really don't think I've watched a full NBA game since he left the game. But the work ethic and the perseverance were just, especially going back and watching this documentary. I knew it because I just saw not only the growth physically, like how big that he actually got from being just a skinny kid from Wilmington, North Carolina, to just an absolute, just shredded athlete, but just how hard he worked. And I love that the trainer, that's been with him since he was, 20 years old, was in the documentary and probably still may work out with him or at least play golf with him. Yeah. To be honest, what's even crazier is that trainer looks better now than he did in 1998. Right. Did you notice that? Yes, other than the gray hair, I'm like, Jesus Christ, the guy's still shredded. Yeah. But the fact that, after those seasons where they would get beat up by the Detroit Pistons that were just, a bunch of freaking bullies, quite honestly, physical, the fouls were much more lenient back then. I mean, just like literally telling guys, like, if Jordan comes near the rim, you slam him to the floor. And that season ended and they lost either the Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals. And he said the trainer always said, Jordan would take a month or two off and then come back and start hitting it hard. And the day after the finals, he said, when are we getting together? And Jordan said, I'll see you in the morning. Like, this dude was just like, I'm coming back harder than ever. I'm going to get stronger.
And he put on 20 pounds of muscle in that off season. And you could see it in the video. I mean, how can you not? Especially basketball players, they wear tank tops, so you can clearly see the definition. But I love the fact that he did it for a purpose, and that was because he was getting muscled around by, who was that, the Pacers at the time, or no?
Pistons.
The Pistons.
Lambeer and all those guys.
And that made me think about how and we've talked about this many, many times, in the last 5 to 10 years, I have re-emphasized or changed my emphasis on beat mixing, because 15, 20 years ago, to me, it was more about emceeing. And so to me, the equivalent of me putting on 20 pounds during the off season because I had to was my emphasis on, clients care more now about beat mixing than they ever did. So I better step up my game. I better, I think I've gone from being a average beat mixer to, I'm no really Dave good. Lander, but I think I'm pretty good, especially. And I'm not knocking anybody, but having an opportunity to hear everyone's live streams, I have a higher opinion of my beat mixing than I ever have had. And that was a conscious decision on my part because I saw the way the industry was trending.
Sure.
And I thought about that, like you said, it wasn't a vanity thing for Jordan. He didn't say, hey, I want to put on 20 pounds of muscle. Sure. He realized he had to do it because he had an opponent that was taking advantage of a weakness. And so he shut that weakness down. I thought that was
a great takeaway. And mine was more just the work ethic, just unmatched. You know what I mean? Yep. Gonna be the first person in the gym, last person out, just absolutely foot on the gas, whether it's off season or during the season. Like it's the only people I've seen that are very similar to that. And again, he had no social media. You really couldn't see unless the media was there. But, LeBron, very similar. Like if you watch LeBron's Instagram year round, he is hardcore at it. Cam, especially trying to make this comeback. I don't even think he's signed yet, but Cam Newton, I mean, he works hard.
Right.
Another one of mine was, and again, this was brought up often. It kind of brought Jordan to tears. He actually took a break. He asked for a break in the middle of it. He started crying a little bit. But I think that they kind of hammered home the point. And to be honest, I think this footage was held by him. I think he owned the rights to sign off on this somehow from 20 years ago. And that's why it hasn't come out for 20 years. And he didn't want it to because he came off as an asshole many times, or a tyrant. He was called that by many of the teammates. It showed him verbally abusing them, calling them the B word, a hoe. Like, just Scott Burrell just took multiple verbal beatings. Like,
I wanted to add, what was between that? He seemed to be his. I don't know why he specifically.
I think because he was younger. It was like almost like a younger brother kind of thing, and I think maybe he saw the greatness. I mean, that guy was a good player. I don't remember much about Burrell, but he was one of those kind of role players. And I think he felt like he had to ride him. And that's what he said. He's like, people that call me that, the quote was something like, have never won anything. And I was just like, oh, man. And then he got emotional. Like, he actually stopped the camera for a minute.
Right.
And I took it back to being a business owner. I took that, there's no doubt I have verbally probably blasted somebody that's worked for me. Maybe they didn't deserve it. Maybe I was just trying to push them harder. Maybe I was, I wouldn't say it's a quality of a good boss, but you also have to, and Mike and I have talked about this before on the podcast, you have to separate friends from employees sometimes. As much as I am friends with my DJs, like sometimes you have to put on that boss cap. And I think that's what he did a lot of times. He kind of took it to the extreme. I don't think I've called my DJs B word or hose, but I took away from it that he did whatever it took, even if it including, really yelling at people and to push them to be great. I think he wanted them to be.
When I saw that part of the documentary, the thing I thought of was I read a biography about Steve Jobs a couple years ago, and the people that worked for him have said very similar things. He was a tyrant. He was an asshole. He was rude. He got in your face. He challenged you. But many of them also said we would not have accomplished nearly as much at Apple had he not been that way.
Right.
So it makes me wonder. Are you
holding a supercomputer in your pocket?
Exactly, right. It makes me wonder if Jordan couldn't have been nicer about it, but would that have had lesser results? And in the end, looking back on a career, would you rather have had 6 championships and been thought of as a bit of a dick, or would you rather have 4 but be considered a nice guy? And I don't know if that's the way the math would have worked out, but perhaps. I mean, he comes across as a bit of a jerk. And I also have to think, every documentary comes with a different angle. This documentary was meant to make Jordan look good.
Yeah.
So the fact that he comes across as a bit of a dick, I would say if somebody else told the story from a different angle, he probably comes off as a huge dick.
Right. How much did they cut of like him?
Exactly. And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's already been a few articles that have come out from players that said, like Karl Malone, I think it was Karl Malone, he said he didn't even want to participate in this because he has a very... Now, he was an opponent that Jordan owned.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't even want to participate in this documentary. So, yeah, I mean, Jordan comes across as an asshole, and probably some people would call him, that's too kind.
Yeah.
But you can't knock the results. And it was the same thing with Steve Jobs. Looking back, could he have been nicer about it? Maybe. But, right, like you said, would this not be as effective if Jobs was a little bit kinder to the people around him and, massage their ego a little bit more rather than berating them? Who knows?
Yeah. The other take. Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah. The other takeaway I had, Mike, was just about overcoming obstacles. Early in his career, I think he broke his foot, it was a pretty bad injury, and I mean, he was going crazy sitting out. To the point where he left. You remember this was in one of the early episodes. He left and went back here to North Carolina and was playing pickup games.
And video footage leaked. And,
they were like, we knew he was back in, at the University of North Carolina. We thought he was rehabbing, and he's out there playing 5-on-5.
Well, the scary thing about that was apparently the doctor said either sit out and heal the injury, or if you come back and re-injure it, it could be the end of your career.
Game over.
So the Bulls were probably thinking, look, we'd rather lose you for an entire season than risk losing. At that point, he wasn't a champion yet, but he was on the rise as looking like one of the best players ever.
Sure.
So to them, it wasn't worth the risk, but Jordan just wanted to get back on the court so badly. Yeah.
And, again, that's it's, I mean, you and I have done that. I mean, you've told me you've been out there, you've run hurt. I've run hurt. I've worked out hurt. I've lifted gear, done shows sick, hurt. And then, the biggest obstacle, and they kind of went into almost a whole episode on it about his father getting killed, when he pulled over on the side of the road to take a nap, which couldn't be more of a freak occurrence. But, those were the things that really stood out to me as pivotal moments, in his career, one early and one late, as these just massive obstacles that he just had to get past, physically and psychologically. You saw, I think after championship 4, we just laid down in the locker room,
So was 4 the first one he won after losing his dad?
After his dad passed. Yep.
And he won that on Father's Day.
Yep.
Right.
On Father's Day.
You couldn't write, if you wrote a script like that and handed it in Hollywood, they would say, this is
too far.
This is too cliche. Yeah. So, the fact that worked out that way was pretty damn incredible.
I think I cried multiple times during that documentary. I'm not going to lie.
Exactly. Yeah. So speaking of overcoming obstacles, one of the quotes I literally wrote down, I don't know who said this about him, but they were talking about why he was so clutch, and Jordan certainly was clutch. Somebody said he didn't allow what he couldn't control to get inside his head. And I love that because, and I thought about what we do at events, and there are a lot of things at events that we can't control, but a lot of times we as DJs let those things affect us. Daytime wedding, and it's broad daylight out, and it's harder to get people dancing in
no alcohol,
daylight, no alcohol, things like that, and we can psychologically let those things get inside our head, and maybe we wind up doubting whether we're ever going to get these people dancing, or questioning whether we should go for it early, or questioning. But the lesson I took away from that is don't allow those outside factors. Just put your head down and do your job. And that's what Jordan did. Whether it was a preseason game or the last shot to win a series, he was able to push all that in a very Zen-like way. Yeah. He was able to push all that stuff out, and his job was just put the ball in the basket. Yeah. No matter what. Our job is do our introductions, make our announcements, get people dancing. Forget about all the other factors. And I think that's going to be important once we finally get back from this coronavirus. There's going to be a lot of other factors that we can't avoid. Bottom line is, we are still there. And if you want to boil it down to one word, we're there to help people have fun. So figure out a way to do that. We're going to have to stop harping on, oh, well, people can't do this, and I can't do this, and people can't be within 3 feet or 6 feet, whatever. Whatever the new world, new normal, whatever they're calling it is going to look like, push it out of your mind and do your job.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
I also thought about this as I was watching. You know, any documentary is reliant on the available footage. And they talked about how I think they were going to make a documentary in 98, so that's why they shot everything.
Yeah.
But as you watch that, you have to say to yourself, how do we even have all this footage?
Yeah.
You know, because they taped everything.
Yeah.
And that is, and I think you, Joe, are a great example of that. You shoot and tape so much stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't need it, you don't need it.
Right,
You know,
right.
But you might eventually. And I thought back as I was thinking about that. I thought about that reality TV show that I participated in. It was a half-hour TV show, and the guy told me they shoot 20 hours of footage
for
what comes at 22 minutes when you think about it, because it's only a half-hour TV show with commercial breaks. It's only 22 minutes of content, and they tape 20 hours of footage.
Jeez.
Tape everything, and obviously we can't be that obsessive.
No,
but you know, if you're looking to make demos or do anything, just keep the camera rolling.
Yeah,
you know, you can cut it and leave it on the editing floor, but you can never go, oh damn. You know, if the documentarian needed footage of Jordan calling Scott Burrell a bitch, if they didn't have it, they didn't have it. But the fact that they had it, they, you know, made that documentary so much better. You know.
This one is a little bit off because he did come back and play a few more years with the Wizards, but I said know when to get out. And let's just assume that after that 98 season, Jordan retires for good. Let's just assume.
So, and again, I don't know his career. So he retired?
He retired
but
again.
Then came back.
Right.
How many years later?
I was having this discussion yesterday. I feel like it was 2, Mike, or a year and a half. I mean, it was too much time.
All right.
And then to come back and
his career like with the
not great. Not great.
Okay.
He was not the same Jordan. It was not like the other time when he went and played baseball and then he came back. It wasn't.
Well, he was still kind of in his prime at that
point.
He was so now he's got 2 years away from the game and he's kind of past his prime.
He's older. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
I noticed how the documentary didn't even bring, like they just said Jordan retired. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, even as a casual fan, I knew he came back. I couldn't have told you how long and everything else, but I knew he did come back. So
I don't even remember. It was not, it wasn't my finest thing to watch. But
I think if you want to make the point, Joe, know when to get away. I think the fact that he came back and the fact that so many athletes either come back or stay past their prime, I think it just shows you how difficult that is. And it certainly wasn't a financial thing. I mean, if you're going to tie this into our industry, I'm sure that there are a lot of DJs who stay past their prime. Because of financially, that, you know, but because we're not going to make what Jordan made over his career. So the fact that Jordan had probably, I'm assuming, a pretty good nest egg and didn't need to come back, it was not a financial decision. It was a ego, legacy. I don't know, call it, passion, chalk it up to something else. Right. Yeah.
I think, you know, especially as a multi-op owner, yes, as a single op owner, you know, needing to be in it, needing to still have the income is one thing. As a multi-op owner, knowing when to get out is critical. You know, my thing that I've always said, and especially even when I was doing the bar and nightclub stuff, I said when I start to get to the point where I don't like the music, or I don't like to be out till 2 a.m, or I don't want to take requests from every, you know, oh, it's Kelly's birthday, girl. I'm getting out of it. And I did. I walked right away from it. Never went back to the clubs.
Right.
Same holds for private events. When I get to the point where on Saturday at 3 o'clock, when I start putting on that suit and loading that van up and I'm dreading it or I'm miserable, that's when it goes to the guys, you know, to my DJs that work for me. And I step back and run the company.
And I think what we're going through right now is a great litmus test for it. If you don't find yourself missing desperately going out on Saturday nights and rocking parties, then you should probably question whether, because our passion has certainly been tested. And if you're sitting at home and you're like, hey man, I love having Saturday nights with my family, and then you might want to consider, because I'll tell you what, I desperetely miss rocking parties. I've been doing some live streaming, and it's hard to keep a smile on my face because I'm live streaming to an empty room going, God, I freaking just miss having a packed dance floor. And so as far as my litmus test goes, this is proof that, I'm not ready to step away from this. But I would urge, especially like you say, any multi-op owner, because if you're a multi-op owner, you have an opportunity to still make some income and not go out rocking your events. And if you're a multi-op owner, I'd ask you this question. If you don't really miss it too much, Would you like to hear that about one of your staff members?
Right.
Don't you want your staff members to be itching to get back out there and rocking parties? I would.
I've told my guys that. I've said, look, when you're not feeling this job is supposed to be fun. Yeah, we make a lot of money, but if you're not having fun doing it, I really don't want you here anymore.
Let me know that you can play out your string and we can walk.
And
away.
You know what, Mike? Before we move on from this, ironically, I've had several guys email me about dates next year that it's mostly my older guys that they want off. You know what I mean? In a time when I really don't need guys to take it off, but luckily I have a huge staff. I feel like this has been an awakening for some of them, that they've kind of hit not the end of their career, but there's a lot of emails have floated between me and Randy and these guys saying, hey, cut me down, from May to October next year. I want to do 2 weddings a month instead of 4.
Right.
So I don't know.
I think this is, it's kind of been forced upon us, but this is probably a great way to evaluate how much do you really, we all talk about, we love this industry, but this has been a good test is, if you missed it desperately the last 2 months and not just financially, then you're probably not near ready to walk away. But if you've been like, I could use the money, but man, I love these weekends off. Yeah. So I have one last question about this.
Go ahead.
We're all well aware how pop culture permeates into our industry. If we were doing events during this time, do you think that this documentary would have made the song Last Dance more popular?
No.
Because it wasn't used in the documentary?
No.
It was just called Last Dance?
Right, yeah. It was just called that. Phil Jackson kind of named the season that. It sounds like, when he knew he was leaving and this was the last year of this team. No, I don't think.
I don't know whether they tried to get the rights to that song and they couldn't or just didn't even bother, but I was surprised we didn't hear that, like, when they finished with that montage, I thought, why aren't we hearing Donna Summer right now? Like
maybe it was too easy or too evident. You know what I mean?
Too obvious.
If you go back though, I think somebody's put together. I know they have on Spotify because I think it came across the other day. The soundtrack, if you will, is phenomenal. And it was
to the documentary.
Yeah,
because a lot of the songs they did use were very motivational.
Yeah, but there was also like super relevant to that era, like hip hop songs,
right?
Like
Definitely.
they were kind of just sprinkled in. You'd be like, "Oh, that was my jam."
Yeah, one of my favorites is Stereo MC's "Connected."
Oh God,
and they use that.
I'm writing that down for my live stream.
I freaking love that song, by the way. And they used that in one of the episodes. And I was like, oh yeah, because it was probably the same year that they were.
It had to be 90 something because I remember playing that like late college career possibly. What was another one? Okay, sorry, I'm just writing that down
But every time I clicked on my DVR I would hear Last Dance in my head, and I started thinking, I wonder if this would have been a resurgence. But you're right, other than the title of the documentary, and I'm sure most people are referring to this as the Jordan. I'm sure a lot of people aren't even thinking Last Dance. No, have you seen the Jordan documentary? Did you see the Jordan documentary or the Bulls documentary?
That's what I keep saying.
Yeah. And I know I made this comment 2 weeks ago. One of my biggest takeaways is Scottie Pippen's voice. Oh my God.
The greatest baritone.
Every time he speaks, he's got this big, deep. And I also love the technique. I don't think I've ever seen this in a documentary. A couple of times they had somebody quoted, and instead of just reading the quote,
I love that.
To get his reaction, they actually handed him the iPad.
I love that.
So he could watch the guy, and oh my God,
I love that.
Because sometimes he laughs and he's like, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
In real time to see his reaction.
Yes, man. I love that.
I thought it was a brilliant technique.
I did too, man. That they go, well, here's what he said about that, and he would. There's so many memes out there of him like rolling his eyes or like laughing.
I also like the fact, if you notice, he's got
the scotch and the stogie,
and I think if you're going to try to, because he was pretty honest and open and pretty real, and I wondered, I kept looking at that glass. It never got lower, I'm sure that in between there was somebody topping that shit off.
Absolutely, there was.
Yeah, I think if you're going to get somebody to try to be honest, giving him a couple of pops of alcohol doesn't hurt.
I'm so glad that he was participatory in it. You know what I mean? That it's current footage of him, like it's just so well done. I'm telling you guys, if you have any inkling of
it's worth the 10 hours. At first I was like 10 hours, but it is really worth it. And like myself, you don't really need to have been a big basketball fan or a big Jordan fan.
It's just really great, guys. Yeah. It's real. People have been texting me, messaging me about it now that everybody's kind of finishing up on it. I mean, it even has transcended into other networks. My dad called me last night. There was something called After the Dance on CBS last night. They were
is that right?
Yeah, it was more talking about it. I mean, it's just with no sports on, this is your replacement for right now.
And that's maybe like if this had been on during normal times and I had my Mets to watch or stuff, I might not have given it 10 hours.
I don't know that I would have.
It is this kind of dark time for sports fans.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good episode,
cool.
Mike.
I think it was very good. I hope guys and gals will watch it and get something out of this.
Yeah, if you got takeaways, leave them in the comments below the post. And we're back on SoundCloud, by the way, now. And also, we've got the PHDJ discussion group on Facebook. So find that, join it, and jump in the discussion. And keep on listening, guys. We appreciate y'all.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Bye, guys.